lot, and yes, I'm going to speak about somehow fascinating part of the internet, and also a bit complicated. I'm sorry for that. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. It's about IDNs. So IDNs, it's a short, first of all, and it stands for Internationalized Domain Names, which means, to make it really simple, domain names that are written in non-Latin scripts, like in Cyrillic, in Greek, in Chinese Mandarin, or whatever other script. What is EURid, first of all? EURid is the registry manager of the .eu top-level domain. We were appointed about 8 years ago by the European Commission, and we have started a partnership with UNESCO a couple of years ago to investigate how internationalized domain names they can contribute to a multilingual internet. We have also thought to make this report after the, let's say, the issue we published last year as a world report, because we have seen that the database that we use to analyze the impact on multilingualism by IDNs has expanded to cover almost 90% of the worldwide top-level domains. And also there is a strong interest by UNESCO to investigate this area, because UNESCO has a specific commitment to promote multilingualism, and that is something that follows also one of the recommendations of UNESCO after the World Summit on Information Society, and it's a recommendation to promote multilingualism and to make sure that this aspect is taken into account whenever people access the web. The report is quite a lengthy report, and you can find the report online at EURid.eu, our website. And it has a foreword by Vint Cerf, and Vint Cerf is one of the founding fathers of the internet. And what Vint Cerf said in this foreword is that as the internet has spread across the globe, the absence of support for non-Latin scripts became a notable deficiency. There are some aspects of the report that are picked up by Vint Cerf in his foreword. First of all, he has underscored that the early introduction of IDNs at the second level, so before the dot, was not so successful, probably because people at a certain point had to move to a new script when typing the dot after the dot. So you could have written a name, for instance, in Greek, but then at the top level there was the Latin script for .gi. It also has picked up another aspect which is carefully investigated in the report, which is that the utility of a domain name is partly dependent on the size of the user base that can understand or remember that domain name. And it's a quite good statement because it corresponds perfectly to the success or unsuccess of some IDN top-level domain that have been launched recently. And the success of these domain names largely depends on the user base, on the people that can take advantage of that domain name written in that specific language. I'm going to start this presentation with the 4 points which I will touch base in the presentation, which are the adoption of IDNs, the usage of IDNs, the factors that impact IDNs at local level, and some conclusions. And I have to say that .eu has a sort of affinity with Bulgaria for IDNs, and I'll let you know why soon. First of all, a short history of IDNs. First of all, IDNs, the history of IDNs started in 1996 when they were proposed by Martin Durst. And they were started to be deployed at the second level in 2000. And the browser support for IDNs, not all browsers by the way, and depending a lot on the policies that the registry managers adopted for IDNs. The browser support dates back to 2002. In 2003, the first IDNs standards were established, so there were some procedures and rules for implementing IDNs. And those standards were reviewed in 2008. Then, in 2008, it's a crucial date for the Internet because it's also the moment when ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigning and Numbers, they started to investigate the process to allow top-level domain managers to launch IDNs at the top level. So this process started in 2008 and ended at the end of the same year, rather in 2009, when basically ICANN opened the door to a so-called fast-track process for IDNs. And the fast-track process was a process to allow specific communities to have the domain name at the top level expressed in their own language. The first IDN TLDs were launched in 2010, and there were quite many in 2010 to be launched and approved by ICANN. We started in 2010 with some, just quoting some of them, Saudi Arabia, Russian Federation, Taiwan, Egypt, and then more they were introduced in the route in 2011, like Korea, Qatar, Hong Kong. And in 2012 we had Serbia and Singapore as well as others. At the time this report was produced, there were 31 IDN CCTLDs that were approved by ICANN, and 19 at the time, again, this report was after they were fully launched, which means there was an open registration for all end users. They could register domain names under the IDN top-level domain. As I said, there is a sort of affinity between .eu and the Bulgarian .pg, because .eu is supporting quite heavily IDNs and multilingualism, as we are the registry manager of the DOT of the European Union. And by contract, we have to provide support in the 23 official languages of the European Union. And also, we should try to implement the .eu in IDN in those scripts that are part of the 23 languages of the European Union. So that's a very healthy or not so healthy process, which we started in 2009 as well. And I guess at the same time also .pg started the process to have .pg in Cyrillic. And basically at the end of the evaluation process, we ended in having more or less the same response from ICANN, because in our case, one of the strings which we applied for, and it's the .eu in Greek, was rejected by the evaluation panel, while the .eu in Bulgarian was approved. And I guess also in the same more or less time frame between 2010 and 2011, also the .pg in Bulgarian was rejected. We do not feel defeated, because fortunately ICANN is wise enough to open reconsideration of the evaluation procedure, and therefore soon there's going to be the possibility for those strings that have been rejected to be re-evaluated by a more, let's say, scientific panel, a panel with some sort of linguistic expertise, and they will be able, upon request of the TLD manager, to re-evaluate those strings. So maybe at a certain point, the .eu in the two strings we applied for and the .pg, they are re-evaluated positively, and we are allowed to be in the root. So, having said that, let's go to the adoption of IDNs. And what we have done is to survey the TLD community and check what is the adoption of IDNs so far at the second level. As you can see from this chart, basically we have seen an increase of the adoption of IDNs over the years. And as a matter of fact, there are more and more top-level domain managers who are thinking or who have already deployed IDNs at the second level. And there are more and more that have launched this process recently. One of the last one in Europe to launch IDNs at the second level, one of the last one was the Italian registry, who have launched, they have launched IDNs recently, and they had experienced a quite good rate of registrations for IDNs under the .at string. We have also thought about the IDN percentage against the total portfolio of registration for the various TLDs. And this is something also that the report investigates. At the same time, as this has been quite something quite hot in the first part of this morning discussion, we have looked at how many IDN applications at the top level have been submitted to ICANN in the new GTLD process. And one of the considerations of the report is that the new GTLD process may expand IDNs. And there you can see all the IDN applications that have been submitted to ICANN. However, there are less than 100. And the fear at multiple levels is that they may get lost in the 1900 or 1400 applications that at the end will be approved. And what we have also investigated is the distribution of those IDN applications. And we can see that there's a good distribution of those IDNs applications around the world. But they're still not so numerous. And there is a large percentage of those applications coming from the signforhaving.com in the various scripts. But at the same time, we are confident that this is a good step to implement and to improve IDNs in the root, and also to allow people to express themselves in their full language, so not having to change script when they write a domain name. The report also investigates the usage of IDNs, and we have investigated that both at the second level and also at the top level for those registries who have launched IDN at the top level as well. At the second level, what we have seen is that a larger percentage of those registries who have launched IDNs has launched IDNs to support primarily the local language. So this has been quite a strong element in the analysis, because really over 90% of those registries who have launched IDNs at the second level, they've done so to support the local script. And there's a minor part of those registries that have basically launched an expanded availability of scripts. So scripts that are not only present in that country, but are present in other countries, but maybe there are also small local communities living in the region or in that country, and therefore the registry manager has decided to not only support the local script and therefore IDNs associated with the local script, but also they have decided to expand the availability of the script. What about .eu, which had similar partners to other top-level domains who have launched IDNs at the second level? So what we can see is that .eu IDNs were launched in December 2009, and we had in one day 47,000 new IDN registrations in just one day. And a few days later, we had a peak of 70,000. So that's the peak of IDNs registered under .eu. But what we have also seen, which is typical of other registries too, is that 1 year later, there's been quite a drop. And the drop is something that, again, is common to other registries as well, who have launched IDNs with a land rush, and then the year after they experienced a drop. So we were expecting that, as well as we were expecting that the volume of IDNs to be registered on the .eu was a volume in between 50,000 and 100,000. And that's because we, before launching IDNs, we had investigated, we have talked with the registrar community, and we heard from them that the demand would have been quite limited. What we have seen in our case is that there is a strong link between the local language and the geographic location of the registrant. Most of the IDNs registered for the .eu domain are coming from Germany, from German registrants. But we have also seen that 75% of the Greek-based IDNs are requested and registered by Greek registrants located in Greece. The percentage is even higher if we look at the Cyrillic IDN in our database, because over 85% of those Cyrillic.eu IDNs are registered by registrants located in Bulgaria. So there is really a strong link between local language and the geographic location of the registrant. But we have also looked into the drop, because this is something that it was worth doing. And why there was a drop? Why there's not a great uptake of IDNs? Well, first of all, there is not so much awareness of IDNs. And this is something that it's because of the registry, because probably we have not done as much as we could to promote IDNs. But also, as we are working in a registrar model, part of the responsibility lies also in the registrar, because some of our registrars, they have not promoted IDNs, they have not informed their customers that IDNs were available. So and because internet was, the way it was not born as in terms of domain names to support IDNs, the customers are much more used to typing the standard domain names without accent letters or no Greek or no Cyrillic or no whatever. And so at a certain point they continue to register this kind of domain names without thinking that other domain names under different extensions can be available. There is also a sort of variable user experience of IDNs in browsers, emails, and applications. And this is something quite important, because only recently the standards for having IDN emails have become available. And in a recent presentation given by the Chinese registry, we learned that for the first time in September 2012, they launched for the first time the availability of IDN emails. It was just in September this year. And that will be probably making a big change, a big shift in the uptake of IDNs. If you think that, again, the domain name can be IDN, but email couldn't. Now it can. So that in the short term, we will be able to assess if this change has an impact on the IDN uptake or not. There is also another element, which is the correlation between the domain name growth and the economic growth. And as a matter of fact, in the famous drop that we experienced, we have seen that part of the drop was linked to a drop from the Greek registrant. And at the same time, we see that the issues that Greece is facing in terms of financial crisis. And so we believe there is a correlation between the domain name growth at local level and the economic growth at local level. And we have also seen that part of the cause is linked to the registrar policies to have short-term marketing campaigns or price promotions. So at the time IDNs were launched, some registrars, they had big price promotions to promote IDNs under .eu. And those price promotions ended after 1 year. So people, end users who are forced to register to renew the domain name, the IDN domain name, at the standard price. And some of them, they may have thought, okay, let's not do it because it's become too expensive. Or the promotion is finished, so I just go back to my standard domain name. I'm not using, as I'm not using IDNs because of all the issues I'm having with browsers and emails. So those are the factors that we believe are the top factors in, let's say, explaining the drop we had 1 year after the launch of IDNs. There is also another investigation that we have made, which is the .eu IDNs usage against other TLDs. And yeah, you can see quite well here. What we have done is to take a sample of domain names and to manually check domain names and the content of the websites linked to those domain names. You can see here different top-level domains, different extensions. As you can see here, there's a good percentage of domain names that are used for business purposes. And there is also a huge percentage of domain that is used for pay-per-click purposes. There's a percentage which is for on-hold domain names that have been registered but whose website is not ready yet. And what we can see for .eu IDNs is that there's a good proportion of .eu IDNs that are effectively used for business purposes, which is almost in the average against the other TLDs which we have investigated. At the same time, we have seen that compared to other TLDs, the pay-per-click is higher, and is also higher the percentage of websites that do not resolve or gives back an error code. And in that case, we can see this is for .eu IDNs is much higher than the other TLDs. Now, this report, the meaning of this report was to provide what we have called an IDN readiness matrix. So a matrix that can let you see how much a country, how much a top-level domain is ready for IDNs. And there are different factors that can impact this readiness. There are some countries indicators, what we call country indicators. I'm just going to have them all here. And the country indicators, so we start with the linguistic and cultural homogeneity. Then the availability of local internet exchange points, the internet literacy in that country, the broadband penetration in the specific country, the local language content, so the availability, the fact that people are used to express themselves in the local language, and the size of the population, the market. And we have some case studies presented in the report. Case studies of registries that have launched IDNs at the top level. And among these case studies, we can see that there are two countries which they have launched IDNs at the top level, that are the Russian Federation and the Republic of Korea. And they all score extremely well for the country indicators because, again, people are used to express themselves in the local language on the net. There is a good internet penetration in the country. The population is big enough, and then we go back to the Vinserf statement that the user base of domain names impact the usability and the domain names itself. And there are also what we call the ccTLD indicators. The ccTLD indicators that we have highlighted are basically for the prices, the liberal registration policies, how much I can register a domain name without going through several bureaucratic steps. If the top-level domain has a brand, is recognized widely in the population of that country, but also abroad. And a strong network of local registrars, because again, most of the registries who have launched IDNs, they depend on the local registrars. They depend on a network of local registrars. And as what we have seen is that in some case studies like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, the network of local registrars is quite weak. And that's also why the IDN in those countries, there is no uptake of IDNs, or there is a limited uptake of IDNs. Yes,
excuse me, yes, you have 5 more minutes.
Thank you. So, IDNs and end users. We believe at present there is what we have found out is that there is a sort of inconsistent and satisfactory experience of IDNs, because end users, there's still some barriers to be overcome. And those barriers are related again to limited support for IDNs by the internet service providers and domain name registrars. The functionality of internet browsers, some of them, again, not all of them, they support IDNs. The lack of email functionality, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how this will change as the standards are available to have IDN emails. And the lack of support for IDNs in popular applications like Facebook. That's a place where IDNs are not supported completely. And also in websites, in terms of when you create your user account. Some of those popular social networks, again, they don't support local language, but they're based on the ASCII, the so-called ASCII Latin script. So the conclusions of this report is that at the end, all the parties involved in the report believe that multilingual internet is a high priority. No matter if it's IDNs, non-IDNs, it's important for any end user to express themselves in their language. IDNs can be supporting the local language presence in the internet, but there's still a lot to do in terms of raising awareness and education around IDNs. Sometimes it's an extremely complex matter to deal with, and when I find myself in front of any audience and I talk about IDNs, I just see their eyes and say, what is this? Another short, another acronym, another things that get my life more complicated. Well, in few words, to make it really simple, IDNs, it's a great feature to allow you to express yourself in your language on the internet, and we should all contribute to develop the standards and the policies around IDNs, because that will allow us to really make internet more valuable for everybody. Thank you.